Hey, Vikings fans, I just heard the news about Ed Donatel, and I got to say, I never want to hear this type of news. Nobody wants to see somebody get fired, a player, coach, staff, all that stuff. But I think we all understand that it was justified. The defense just did not see enough improvements. And to me, the biggest thing was we weren't aggressive enough. My style of defense for me personally is one that's intimidating. It's aggressive. It has this, a prideful nature about our defense. And I just didn't see that this year. So I'm excited to see what head coach Kevin O'Connell has up his sleeve as far as who's going to take over. I really don't care what scheme they play. I don't care if it's a 3-4, a 4-3, whatever it is. I just want to see a rough and tumble, intimidating, aggressive defense. That's Vikings football. That's what I can't wait to see for 2023. Thanks. Bye.
Howdy. Just heard the Ed Donatel news that the team is going to go in a different direction to defensive coordinator. And first and foremost, God bless Ed and his family. His son, Steve, very talented, very bright future. He's on the staff. So everybody with the Donatel family, it's been a pleasure to get to know you, and the best of luck to Ed and to everybody involved. Now, with the What's Next program, I'd have no idea. I know on staff between associate head coach Mike Pettin and inside linebackers coach Greg Minuski, a lot of years of defensive coordinating around the NFL. Mike was a former head coach of the Cleveland Browns and, in fact, gave Kevin O'Connell his first crack at coaching in his career. There are very talented coaches on this staff, so curious to see what happens there and or from the outside. But when it comes to the why, I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to speak for the team on something like this because to a man, Ed Donatel, this is not a problem of, I would imagine, belligerence or insubordination and like ruffling feathers. I'd guess that he's just a very kind man with a lot of equity and longevity within the National Football League. But, I think the team gave up the fourth most yards in the history of the program. I don't know, man. From a detail standpoint, from Quez Watkins, when we were at Philadelphia with that long touchdown, middle of the field, uncovered, to just like all the air that was there in the middle of the field, some players running into each other every so often. I got no idea what exactly is the reason that led to this. I just know that I wish the Donatels well, specifically Ed, and I'm excited for what's next.
The Vikings have parted ways with defensive coordinator Ed Donatel, and this was one of those situations where it had to happen. If you think about Kevin O'Connell, this was pivotal in his early head coaching career. A lot of people were questioning whether he was mean enough, and I don't know if that's the word you want to use, but if he had the ability, or he was too nice, I guess you'll say, to fire Ed Donatel. When you look at the 31st ranked defense in most categories, when you look at 25.9 yards per game heading into the Bears game was 31st. 273 pass yards given up was 31st. 296.8 yards per game, that was 31st. This offense, on the other hand, 260 passing yards per game was 5th, and 25 points per game basically was 7th in the NFL. This offense was high powered. This offense kept them in every single game. When you think about the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Lions, you take those out of there, and even the Lions had a shot, but you take those Dallas and Eagles losses out of there, and this team was extremely, and at the end of the year, the Packers, come on now, but you look at this team, and you think about their ability to win games and how they won games. They won games because of the offense. And so you have stars on that defense. You have ballers on that defense. But fundamentally, something was wrong. When you go into a playoff game and a coach makes a comment that the players are going to take over a little bit of the defense and you're going to like what you see, clearly there's something where it's not working. There's a teacher that's trying to teach and the students are not following. And I've always been told that coaches' job are to get the best out of their players and learn what their players do well and then create. So my theme of the season for the defense was square peg, round hole. There was a lot of square pegs on that defense trying to fit them into a round hole of that 3-4 defense, and it did not work. When you talk about shell coverage versus getting pressure on the quarterback. It did not work. And so Kevin O'Connell had to make the only decision that made sense, which is your defense did not do well. Your offense was strong. So what needs to change? And maybe it's just a fundamental change. It could be a structural change. And we'll see what these players look like when you look at the draft in this offseason. But I think the Vikings made the right decision. Kevin O'Connell made the right decision because his offense was phenomenal. He now has to go find a defensive coordinator that can get the best out of the players that he has on this roster as they begin to build. Now, they won 13 games. Nobody expected it. So I think if they had won maybe 9 or 10 and snuck into the playoffs, it might not be as big of a question mark as a team that won 13 games and was all offensive driven. But the Vikings, at the end of the day, they made the right decision. They have to now go find themselves the defensive coordinator of the future.
Well, Viking fans, by now you've probably heard of the decision to release Ed Donatel from his defensive coordinator duties. Now, I don't necessarily want to talk about the merits of that decision. I want to talk about the impacts of that decision. Mainly, you've got some very good assistant coaches in that building. Question is, do you promote one of them to defensive coordinator, only having to fill one position from outside, and then tweak what you've been doing over the last season and hope that it gets better? The other question is, do you go outside of the building, bring in a whole new defensive coordinator, which means yet another whole defensive system and a different group of players that may fit? Either way, this team has only been a 3-4 team for 2 seasons out of its existence. So maybe it's something about Minnesota where the 3-4 just doesn't fit. I don't know. But I do know this. It is going to be one interesting offseason.